Good evening and welcome to the second in our series of the Armstrong Watson Audience With series. I'm delighted to have three guests here tonight. I'm sure some people watching may recognise two of them. I'm delighted to be joined by Tracey and Aylett Roan from Roan's Dairies in southwest Scotland, TV stars from the second series of this farming life, which I'm sure everyone would agree was probably very brave of them to do, but it's excellent to see. So delighted to be joined by Tracey and Aylett, who have many roles in their life as well as running their diversification at home. Aylett's director of the Royal Highland Agricultural Society in Highland Shore. Tracey is a founder of the Dumfries and Galloway Women in Dairy, a support on Scotland Land Estate. So two busy ladies, so thank you for your time. And I'm also joined by my own colleague and fellow partner, David Threlkeld. David looks after the accounts and finances of a big batch of our clients from our Carlisle office. And that obviously involves a lot of dairy and diversified businesses in Cumbria and southwest Scotland. So welcome to you all.
Thanks, Andrew.
We thought it was very apt to get Aylett and Tracey on tonight. More obviously, there's, as we've all seen on this farming life and things, there's a big working dairy farms behind the business, but I'm reliably told that's the boys, I think was the term, or the men and sons that do that. But it's really, as we go through changing times in agriculture and changes in support systems and things, they've gone through a big diversification product, which they're going to tell us lots about, into Roan's Dairy. And I think a lot of us are going to have to think about diversification as another income stream. So that's the purpose of tonight. Quick overview: we're going to have an interesting and I'm sure amusing at times chat with Tracey and Aylett, having heard them speak before. So we'll do that. David's going to give us an update on where we as Armstrong Watson think the dairy and associated sectors are at, and also one or two tips and things to watch out for on any diversification project. We have got time at the end for questions for us all, and I would point you to, on the webinar, you should have a question box, which I can see. So if anyone has any questions, fire them through and we'll see if we get time at the end for those. So I think we'll get on to the main event, because none of you have logged in to see me particularly or hear my voice whittering on. So we'll get on to the main body of it. So welcome and thank you, Aylett and Tracey. I'm sure you're well known to many. So, and I'm not going to direct the questions at either of you. So you can willing to fight over who answers them. But I thought we would start by sort of saying, what, as two family farms working as one family business, where did the thoughts come from for diversification, whatever it might have been into? What set the ball rolling on it all?
I think Aylett should answer that.
Oh, Stuart, who's the eldest brother of the family that I'm married to, it had been something that he'd been looking to do for so many years, basically because he's that passionate about the cows, the milk, everything, and just the thought of everybody else in the Dumfries and Galloway area being able to participate and have some of that milk was something that he'd always wanted to do. But I kind of crapped all over that, basically, saying it was going to be too much work, didn't want to know, wasn't doing it. It was just like, no. And we did dip our toes in. We did get an early milk label made up and things like that, but it was just never right. Nothing just quite fitted into place. So it got shelved for a couple of years. And then Tracey was going through changes in her life and had embarked on the Rural Leaders course and came out of that with all guns firing, basically going, right, let's just do this and crack the whip. And I'm sat there going, oh, all right, okay, we're going for it. And we did. We jumped in straight away. It took off initially. I think it got started a lot quicker than we had really envisioned. And then the age-old thing of a crap milk price kind of pushed us into it. But every year there's always something like that. So no, and we did it. We got a logo made up. We decided what we wanted to do. And, well, as they say, the rest is history.
I thought you were going to say I was going through the change there.
What? I thought we weren't going to get that personal, but carry on.
Yeah,
So
Aylett's right. I mean, before I came back to the farm full time, I was a housing officer. I was working for a local authority, a social landlord. And I suppose I was probably like kind of a bit fed up of dealing with antisocial behaviour tenants and wheelie bins, and I just thought, you know what, I'll maybe just come back to the farm. So it was a kind of right time. I was on the rural leadership programme as well, and as much as I'll not let Stuart know it was actually a good idea he had, but I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I think with me and Aylett kind of working together, we're kind of a bad combination, because we work really well, but we kind of get an idea and we just run with it. And it's like goes a bit wild and a bit crazy, and you know, it's like, and then Stephen and Stuart try to rein us back in, but we're like, no, this is going to work, this is what we want. And I think like when we looked at the milk label, I think they thought we'll just put like a cow on it, and we're like, no, it needs to be something quite bright, and like, because we knew we were the ones that went to supermarkets, so we kind of knew what would catch our eye on the shelf. So it was like, yeah, we're probably a bit of a bad combination, but a good one in some ways, because we work very well.
But it always seems to pay off though. Out of chaos, it always seems to come together, and it just works. And if it's not working, we don't let anybody know. We'll make it work some way or another.
Yeah, we're good at problem solving.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably why it's working so well, isn't it? That you can clearly see coming across from this that you're passionate about what you do, and you'll make it work. Because I expect that somewhere throughout it there'll have been the tough and dark days, as well as the fun days and whatever. So what the slogan, I think, if I'm correct by reading it, your sort of brand is on Fresher Than Udders. Roan's Dairy's Fresher Than Udders, and it started in 2015, was it roughly?
Yeah.
So
No, that's
what was the thought process behind that, and do you think that's worked, or was it?
Well, Fresher Than the Udders was a flippant comment that Stuart came up with, basically, and we didn't have anything else we couldn't just say that, well, no, that's no good or whatever, because we didn't have any other suggestions. So it kind of got put down, and well, it's just been there ever since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what the launch day was like the 26th of September 2015, and it was at Colvend Farmers Market. It was just a kind of local market that happened every month. So we just got some bottles and took them made up a stand outside and took a cow down, and the media attention was quite surreal, that people were really interested to hear what we were doing. And so I think that kind of set the pace, that Border ITV came, and in the local papers, and it just kind of went poof, and that was it. I don't think our feet have probably touched the ground since I'll be into our 6th year now. Brilliant,
and that's what it's all about, isn't it? And so, you know, we're talking about your diversification, which was into bottling milk and doorstep deliveries, and then moved on to the Udder Bar, which we'll come on to shortly in these. But there's many different forms of diversification. So what's gone wrong and you wouldn't do again, and what lessons have you learned that sort of could be adaptable to any form of diversification? I like easy questions.
I think for me it's the time. It's from a female mum point of view, you give it all, you put your 100%, and then other things get neglected. That's what I found quite hard, that you were still expected to do everything else as well as work on the project, and it was like trying to juggle all these plates, and you were spinning them all, and sometimes plates would crash, and it was hard, probably mentally and physically. And there's probably been times when I remember labelling bottles late at night and thinking, oh my God, I've got to go out and deliver this. But each time you were going out in that milk van, you were going to visit another trade customer, so it kind of kept you going, that you were going, and it was like building up that kind of trade. So it was kind of, as much as your dark times, there was good times always coming around the next corner.
And did you have similar experiences, or is there other, has there been other challenges for you, Aylett?
It's just the sheer amount of hard work. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sort of go away from hard work and whatever, because, well, idle hands and all that, but it's just that extra level, just when you think you've got you can't give anymore because you're basically broken down in tears from exhaustion because you've not slept in a couple of days, because you still have to do everything that happens during the day, then you have to go and drive all night and just work through that, and then come home, have something to eat, and then you're back out getting the kids to school or whatever, and it just carries on. But you just find something, I don't know, you just find something and you carry on, and then suddenly a year passes and then another year passes, and thankfully some of those things that were horrendous and really pushed you to your limits then don't occur quite so often anymore. So,
do you mind that time, Aylett, do you mind that time when we were up in Edinburgh for the Rural Awards and we went up? It was a mission to get off the farm and get away. I'm sure I left my kids unattended for a couple of hours because there was just nobody available. And I says, look, your daddy will be home soon. And then you came back down the road and you had to go out do deliveries. And it's like, you know, as much as you're having the highs, it was like, when are we ever going to get a wee break? When are you like going to actually stop it? It's yeah, I remember that well.
That was a fantastic evening, and I drove home and came back, and it was while we were doing this farming life, and I remember I did a video cam thing, which I actually still have, and it just showed me trying to pull my hair out, and then also the eyeliner streaming down my face, getting ready to go out and deliver milk, and then came home and then went to a farm sale later that day, and I disappeared, and Stuart found me propped up on tractor weights in the middle of a field, raining, sound asleep. And it was just like, can we go home now? There's not enough bacon rolls and cups of tea to get you through this. And then you come home and then you're repeating it, and it just, but saying that, everything got done and we're still here, and that was 3 years ago or something, but actually there's happy memories that have come out of that.
Yeah, excellent. So it's like everything, there's no easy ways, is it? But I know one thing, when we were last talking on Monday, that many of us think that diversification means that you have to do and you've just talked about lots of hard work, but you have to do all the work yourself. Now, you've used quite a bit of outsourcing, especially for the bottling, haven't you? So I was just wanting you to sort of describe the thought process behind that, rather than doing it all yourself.
Well, the thought process, mainly it comes down to money at the end of the day. When we first started out, there was no structures on the farm that would be suitable to put a plant in, and there was no money, because the whole idea of this project is to make money to help support the farm who was suffering at the time. So there isn't a magic pot of cash to do that with, so we had to come up with something. And plus, do we want to invest hundreds of thousands of pounds on something that possibly doesn't work? So we were able to outsource, which allowed us to see, and we thought we'll give it a year, see how it's going from that. So obviously we're now year 6 and we're still outsourcing. We have changed our outsourcing plant, but the amount of money that we pay for that and what it costs us is, we can't compare that to having to clear a greenfield site, to put up a building, put the equipment in, find people who are trained with that. And within Dumfries and Galloway, nobody else is doing that. So that training already isn't here, and people with that specialisation isn't here. Yeah. So we're fortunate we're using a plant that we're giving extra business to, and especially during COVID, because a bulk of their business was wholesale. So they've actually suffered, and they have staff members on furlough. So we're allowing them to keep more staff members working with that. And it works, but it won't work for everybody. But thankfully, for the size of business and the litres we're putting through, that allows us to do that and make it worthwhile.
No, I think that's really interesting, because I think there is this danger as businesses diversify, that they think that diversification means doing it all yourself. It's about diversifying into a new business line, but it absolutely doesn't mean doing it all yourself and having to invest in it all, and if it's not economic to do so. Now, I know one of the bits that I've seen is the Udder Bar. So I was curious to where the idea for the Udder Bar came from. Now, I think from conversations I've had with you, I think that it's a bit like men's golf tours and women's trips to the spas. It's what goes on tour stays on tour a little bit, isn't it? But I'm sure that as well as telling us where the thought process came from, that there'll be an interesting tale or two to tell on that.
I'm just laughing because when you talk about the Udder Bar, it just makes me smile. I think Aylett once described it's our personalities in a box, and it really is. It started out, I think it's actually probably Aylett's idea that just grew arms and legs, because we hosted an open day and Aylett said we should make milkshakes, and she bought, was it 3 or 4 machines, and the milkshakes were so blooming popular that we burnt them all out, and we thought, right, this was actually quite interesting, so we bought a gazebo. And we just kind of thought, let's just try it. I think, did we went to Stranraer show as a kind of first, was it early days? Early days we went out west and loaded up this van, set off first thing in the morning, and let's just say the weather deteriorated and that gazebo nearly blew away. And I left Aylett holding it, and I went and kind of got, I think it was the fire brigade actually. There was a fire brigade, there was a stand, and these firemen came and ratchet strapped us back down, and that was an experience. So we soon realised that a gazebo was great, but it just maybe wasn't so robust. And there was a popularity of these horse box trailers he kept seeing popping up on Pinterest and other like events you would go to. And I think Aylett, you found this horse box, and yep, that was it. Went and looked at it and thought, let's buy it. And I think we converted it and then took it up the road on a motorway when it's first out in. I think we lost a pack of kitchen roll on the way up because the door flung open.
And I looked in the mirrors because I have to drive it. So I just happened to look in my mirrors and I thought, what's flapping around? And then look back and this packet of kitchen roll and all this sort of stuff down the main road. I had to pull in, charge down the road. And then we've got a bungee rope holding it shut in the early days. So we ended up having like a snagging list, let's just say.
And obviously the Udder Bar will have been in dry dock because of COVID. But when you were at full steam ahead before the pandemic, which is the sort of best show, the best event? I've watched you on Twitter and things from the Highland, which looks a quiet affair.
That was.
I don't know how we managed to get into the Highland, because Aylett annoyed the security guard before we even arrived.
I didn't take direction there. We were told to go one way to get in, and I was like, that's not how you get in. I'm not going that way. So I was going in a different direction. He turned out to be our friend for the next few days, so it was handy. But no, we severely I think it was better not knowing what we were going into. It was unbelievable, because day one of that was just like, we can't do anymore. We did 3 times more than we'd ever done at anything, and we worked flat out, and it was just pandemonium. And then it was just the next day, and it just got more and more and more. And it was like, what do we do? And at one point, because the queue, you couldn't even see the end of the queue, we were just like, stop. Just give us 2 seconds, because we didn't get time to have a toilet break, have anything to eat or anything. And it was just like 2 seconds. We just need to be able to breathe here. And then we were parked next to the London Red Bus that did Pim's Bar and things like that. They just popped on the side with a glass of Prosecco each. And I was like, right, we're going to drink this, then we're going to carry on. And it was just, I think you get very far in life if you're just nice, smiley and happy to people. And they just, without realising we needed help, they were just there and just give you the pick up. And I think that makes all the difference.
No, I think,
I was going to say the best feeling with the Highland show was the fact that like Stephen and Stuart were like, oh, don't think you should go. It's just, it's not going to be worth your while. It's a lot of work involved. You're going to be away off the farm. No, don't think you should go. And the fact that we proved them wrong and like really just smashed our targets probably in the first day, that I felt quite smug coming back down the road. Although we were knackered, I felt quite smug.
Were you allowed, or did you feel able to be smug through the Highland show hangovers that we've all had in the past?
Oh, well, we had to behave a bit because we were working from
Yeah.
like 7 o'clock in the morning through to about 8 o'clock at night. And then by the time you went and found something to eat, it was kind of like, we did, but I think I had 1 or 2 nights where I went for a quick drinky for a wee while. But it was just, at the stage where your feet ached that much, you just had to go to bed.
It would be rude not to, wouldn't it, not to partake in the odd one? But that's, I suppose, it's obviously very successful, the Udder Bar, when it's allowed during pandemics. But it sounds from what you say that's almost a bit of a release and fun part of it, away from, we all have day-to-day grinds I'm sure in the run. Is that how it feels? Or?
Yeah.
It does, because although it's a business and the box is basically, it's an education centre at the same time as milkshakes. So nobody can just turn up and get a milkshake from us. They have to have left knowing that they're getting local milk and where that's coming from. And there's little fun stickers that, I don't know where Tracey finds them from, that she puts up everywhere. And it's just a wee tongue-in-cheek education thing that everybody likes, and they're all kind of looking in and asking questions. So it's not just lining up to get any old milkshake. And hand on heart, they're not the best milkshakes out there, but it's the best experience you'll ever get getting a milkshake, that's for sure. Especially when machines explode and cups get dropped. And
I can vouch for that, because the last time I think I managed to get one was at the Border Union show, and you kept me full of milkshakes that day. So I think they're good enough. I think you're doing yourself down a little there. I suppose these are all great forms of diversification. What differences has the diversification made to the family businesses? And sort of how quick did you feel the benefits of it, or did it take longer than expected? Was it shorter than expected, or?
No,
I'm still waiting for the benefits. What benefits?
More work.
No, it's taken, they have a 5-year rule on startup businesses, basically, of any size, and it's definitely true. It wasn't until last year that we turned the corner, and it got to the stage where at 5 years we really had to assess whether or not it's something we were carrying on with, and it was seriously looking at that we were just going to stop it for the amount of sheer work that we were going through. Was it worth it for the return? Because at the end of the day, it had to come down to money. This is meant to be helping support the farm. And it wasn't. It was taking Tracey and I away from the farm, so they had to employ more labour for that, just funds through that, and then milk as well. So, but thankfully, we've turned that corner, and we've got to that point where it washes its face and more. We're now at a point where we can support the farm properly and make it worthwhile, and then everybody's on board with support with it.
Oh, that's really interesting, really honest of you, because I think, we're all in business, and what I see in my day job when you're talking to people in diversified businesses, that sometimes you have to take that brave decision, and you took the brave decision and carried on, and it's worked brilliantly because of all the hard work. But sometimes you haven't got to be shy or frightened to stop a business as well if it isn't doing things. So I think that's a really honest answer. Now, I know the world goes around on social media, and it's a big marketing tool and get right. And I think from conversations we've had, Tracey's chief marketeer, or whatever the title is. But what have you sort of, because it doesn't matter whether you're selling a holiday let, quad biking centre, or pints of milk or milkshake on social media. I'm sure you've got some experiences or some tips for us all on what works and what doesn't work, or what you've got to do, really. I'll be interested in that.
Oh, social media, it's a great thing, but once it's out, it's out. It's like toothpaste, you can't put it back in. And it's a free tool, and we really utilised it at the beginning. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we're on TikTok. I think we've dabbled in Snapchat. I think we're on Pinterest. We really spread ourselves quite thin, but each platform does something different. Facebook's very much our customer orientated. Instagram kind of tells our story about the farm, and Twitter's very more business linking. And yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything much about social media apart from using my own Facebook page, and it's been a big learning curve in the last 5 years about what works and what doesn't work. And I honestly, I can't keep up to speed with Facebook changing their anagrams and all that. I honestly, it's a way over my head. And like, I would put out some, at the beginning, I would put like a post about, oh, you know, you can get our 2-litre bottle of milk for £1.90 on your doorstep, and it just wouldn't go anywhere. But I could put a picture out about Gertrude who'd calved, and it just, you know, people loved that. So I thought, right, people want to know what we're doing. They want to see cows calf, and they want to see how the cows get milk. So it's like, you're selling a product, but you're actually selling the story behind the product. And they wanted to see, you know, what we were doing. And I think after this farming life, I think our social media kind of took a kind of increase, and that probably kind of helped in a way. But yeah, it's I still can't get my head around social media. I'm certainly no expert in it.
No, that's interesting. And is it little and often rather than just now and again? Is that something that works, or?
Yeah, I mean, basically as a full-time job, I've always kind of said that to the rest of them. Look, you can't just leave it for a week. You need to keep going at it. And it's quite time consuming because you're always got to think of content, and that content's got to have a message. And it's really difficult, like when you're trying to juggle other things in life, you kind of forget and you realise, oh, I've not posted anything for a week. So I've got to the stage now, I've kind of got somebody in to come and help us, to kind of actually help take the pressure off, because I have the ideas, but I don't have the time to put it out there. So it's very much planning, like maybe Facebook's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then have an ad campaign running, but Instagram will have something different. Yeah, and you always want to drive it back to your website, so then they can go to your website and register to sign up for doorstep delivery. So it's trying to direct them through that.
Yeah, that's really interesting and really useful to many, I'm sure. You've said the business is, you know, you got that 5 years. You made the decision. It's now helping support the farm and things. What does the next 5 years look like? And that's an open question, but you know, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Maybe retirement, maybe jetting off to Bermuda. But what's in the scheme of things?
Listen, I'm not flying anywhere, but I have to wear a mask the whole time.
No, that's two of us. Yeah, I'll holiday in the UK so I can do it sensibly.
We just have to, well, we continue to grow and expand our customer base in the areas that we still go to, because there's that demand is still there. And you're just continuously getting better at what you do, tightening the ropes on things. We've got a glass bottling plant, which we bought start of, oh my God, about a year ago, actually.
Okay.
Which we installed because we're very fortunate. It's another reason why we're quite fortunate. So where we process at the moment, we've put our glass bottling plant in there because they had a bit of spare space, which we've put in, and COVID hit, then nobody would come and sort it out, everything. And then when we had that wee bit of a lockdown let up, we managed to get it sorted out, but then we are now still waiting for it to be commissioned. And it just takes extra long, and then literally months go by because, well, basically with COVID, created so much extra business for ourselves. We didn't have the time to push that on, so it had to be sort of put on the back burner slightly, but it's very much on the front of everything now, and that's basically our next thing, is focusing in getting our milk into glass bottles and onto doorsteps within Dumfries and Galloway and further out if anybody wants to buy it. Excellent.
And you mentioned that dreaded word that we're all sick of hearing, and it can all be so negative, COVID. What sort of has it had a positive or a negative impact on your businesses, and how have you had to adapt maybe as well?
Well, as far as the milk business, it's kind of a bit of at the end of the day, COVID has had a massive impact, which is positive on our business. It really has. We've always said that the way of us being able to make money out of it is having more customers. So the more milk that's going through the system lowers all the other costs. That's the way forwards, and that actually did that and proved it. However, we've lost all our hotel, cafes, restaurant trade, all that, where they take between 10 to 50 odd litres a delivery, things like that. That's where that's disappeared. So without the doorstep, we would have been snookered, so that's something that's proved definitely worthwhile. So it's just concentrating with that now on making sure that people who are self-isolating, not going out and things like that, we have those extra wee products. So we always said we would only ever sell our own milk or have a milk product, and all these extra products, and we're not doing them, we're not doing them. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't even get a loaf of bread in the local town or anything like that. It's like, right, we've got to stop this. So using local businesses within the area, we're sourcing in these products and selling them as well, which has made a big difference. So overall, it's been positive for us, and we've all stayed COVID free. So,
well, that's a blessing, isn't it? Because it's pardon me, it's certainly tried hard to get round the country. And did it change your approach to marketing? I suppose it drove more of us to social media, didn't it?
Yeah. I remember when Boris announced the lockdown, and I remember sitting in the office with Aylett in the original office we were in above the robots, and the phones just, well, I say phones, the one phone line just was in meltdown. And our Facebook page was just going mental. We were getting personal messages, can we set up for a milk order? And it just went wild. And so I think COVID kind of pushed us to think, right, we need to think differently here. And it not only made us think, right, we need to go online and get a bit more streamlined, it also kind of said, this office isn't big enough, we need to move. And I can remember one weekend during the peak of lockdown on a Sunday, moving desks across the yard to a cottage on the farm to expand our office. The phone was still ringing, and like we were carrying desks across the yard to try and like, you know, expand and make it more safer for the staff and get the new computer system in. And I just thought, why are we doing this? But it was probably the best thing we ever did, because we're now online. You can register online, you can change your order online, and it's kind of reduced the it stopped the phone calls as much in the office. It just kind of helped. I remember that Sunday afternoon, that was hellish.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to a free range egg business I look after. That was selling a lot wholesale, but was trying to build his market of home sales and shop sales and things, and it just transformed that business almost overnight to huge levels. And he had to do exactly the same as you. He had to invest quite a lot in his website and the add-ons to the website that made the sales and the website orders and things easier. But it has been transformational. Now, I think that I know. Just before we get onto this farming life, because they want to ask about, there's obviously the next generations, and many hours have spent on how do you deal with succession in farming businesses, and it's a very important and thought thing and difficult conversations, because it's families involved, not just business people like in our sort of business. So, do you see the next generation taking on the farm and the Roan's dairy and other business, or is it too early to tell, or what's the thought?
I think they're ready now with all this life learning and homeschooling. I think my 12-year-old's ready. He tells me what I've done wrong already. I couldn't even scrape silage in right the other night. I got told I'd done it wrong. And I'd like to think that they will, but I do worry that they've probably seen the hard work and the time, not having the free time to enjoy things. I do worry they've seen that side of it and the kind of stress side. I'm probably not that very good at hiding my stress levels in front of the kids, and I do worry they've maybe seen that. But I don't think, you don't know, do you?
No, you don't.
I'll probably work him too hard. By the time he's 16, he's scunnered and wants to go away to New Zealand or something.
Yeah, I suppose, and none of us can tell with our children, but it's an interesting. So you achieved fame and camera time on This Farming Life, which was, I think every series has been brilliant for British agriculture and connecting farming to the public. It's much better than the Country Files and all this sort of stuff of the world. It's real, but it looks great from our side of the camera. It looks easy. It all looks relaxed. How did you get involved with it, and what's it like being filmed for This Farming Life?
I'm looking at it because it was her fault.
Ah.
Usually the best thing, well, no, not always the best things, the worst things are my fault. From memory, we'd received an email round, I think it had come from the NFU that obviously put the feelers out, because now everything goes across social media that they're filming something, but this was kind of almost before that. And I kind of saw it come in and I thought, oh, why not? So I typed up a wee bio about everybody, well, about the farm and how we're a new business setting up, but it was very little about the actual milk business. It was just about the farm and the family dynamics and things like that. And then pinged it off, left it, and then never thought anything of it. And then there was a phone call into the office, and I ended up one day sitting down at my desk, and there was 3 post-it notes on my desk saying, please call back, with the lady's name, and it said the BBC. And I'm looking at it going, oh, it'll just be like a wee 5-minute wee slot, like get on board the news or something like that. I thought, oh, and then I kind of Googled her name. I was like, oh, that's actually quite something big, quite big. And I phoned her back and she says, we're filming for this. And I was like, all right. And it still didn't click. And then she started mentioning people's names about series 1. It was just like, oh, I watched that. Oh, I was like, right, okay, we need to get the family involved. So she pinged an email, came down and met us all. And like everybody that's part of it, you have to go through what's the word? Like a camera test type thing, where we all lined up and said something and smiled, and then you wait, and then they came back and said they wanted us. And I was like, so yeah, and as they say, the rest of it is history as far as that goes.
So what's it like having to milk cows, run Roan's dairies, make silage with cameramen and producers about all the time? Is it as we imagine, lots of takes and this sort of thing, or is it just you've no choice, they'll film you and it doesn't matter what you look like?
I wish there was retakes, because it'd probably be some stuff I would do again, but no, once they'd filmed it, it was theirs. We didn't get to see it or edit it. So that was quite unnerving, because when it went out, we'd never seen any of it. You don't get to like, oh look, take that bit out or don't edit that way. So you kind of like, and because it was filmed over so many months, you kind of forgot what you'd said. And you think, and then you hear yourself and you think, oh my God, it's, I found that really uncomfortable, like hearing and watching myself. There was a lot of gin drunk in this house during that time it was aired. Tesco delivery did well.
And if you were to sum it up now, I thought it came across, it came across brilliantly well.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody, because they're obviously looking for families, it's a great crew, and they basically kind of just follow you around, and you almost forget they're there sometimes, and they become part of the family for a while they're with you and things like that. And it's not as scary as I think you would expect, actually. So you kind of get used to it. So if anybody thinks about it, they should put themselves forwards. It's not a negative thing overall, and it's in their best interests to make everything look good. So they're not going to hang you out to dry, basically, on it. So if anybody gets the opportunity, it's definitely worthwhile. It puts agriculture in a really good light. It
does, and that's and we've still got people like you do a brilliant job at it as a family farm and farming business, but we've still got a huge job to do to get I don't know what proportion, but of the general public really understanding what it's all about and not just believing the rhetoric. That's been really interesting. We're going to go out. I'm going to get David back any second when because I want him to give us an update so where he sees the dairy sector, because he's much more involved with it than me sitting on the east side of England, which is all very little. I'm sad to say I sit here in Northumberland and there's 2 or 3 really good big dairy farms, but they're few and far between in this part of the world. So if, we'll get David back in a minute. So I think one of my questions before we talk to David and get 1 or 2 of the audience ones that are popping through is, what's your one highlight between each of the last 6 years since you started it, if you just...
I have 2. I don't think it's impossible to have one.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Right, so I'll go with my 2. 1, finally making money, like proper money at the end of the day. I've like me and profit and loss sheets, monthly accounts, I'm all over it. It's just, it's brilliant. and so that is a massive high. And the other one, I think the Udder Bar, there isn't a bad point, even when it's going horribly wrong. What we can pull off between the two of us and not have, we've never had to actually phone for proper help because we're stuck, and we just get it done. I think that just says so much about us. It's just, that's phenomenal. I'm very proud of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Tracey?
Do you know, I think probably one of the funniest and most surreal moments would be when we were at the Rural Awards at Edinburgh at Dynamic Earth. Being there with a film crew and not knowing at all like we were going to be runners up, and like Fred Macaulay there, and like that was just so surreal. Like, that's not natural, like to go and get filmed being at the hairdressers and getting yourself like titivated. It just wasn't natural, and it was just so surreal, but it was a fond memory. I remember it well. And I actually with Aylett,
when we got mic'd up in the disabled toilets and you walked out and left the door open for me, so my dress is pulled basically down, miking up, attached into the back of your bra, and like people are just walking past. Shut the door.
So surreal. And I have to say the Udder Bar as well, like going to big events like Electric Fields, you know, I'd never been there before in my life, and then like actually going to the Highland Show as a trade stand, you know, that was quite a big moment. Like, pretty like proud that two girls bought this first box and rocked up, you know, and set it up. And yeah, that's pretty surreal, because I mean, I remember going to Highland Show when I was younger, and then a Highland Show in Young Farmers, and never ever would have thought I'd be there selling milkshakes. Just never would have thought. So yeah, I think we have a wee pat on the back for that one. Quite chuffed.
I think you deserve. I think just before we move on, I think you deserve, the pair of you deserve a huge pat on the back, and it's just fantastic to hear the positivity and out of it. And I'm sure it's encouraging many other people watching the webinar and others that will watch the recording that it can be done, and there's a fun side of it. So there's always a serious side to business, and I suppose as accountants, we look at profit and losses and things a lot as well. But I just David has loads of experience looking after dairy farmers and things, so I thought it'd be useful for all of us and all our viewers to get David's thoughts on where the dairy sector is, and then I've got a question bar that's filling up with one or two questions for us all after that. So David, you know, you look after lots of dairy farmers. What do you see are the key points for dairy farmers now and for the next couple of years, or 2 or 3 years, I suppose?
Yes, good question, Andrew, and yeah, hopefully I won't get too serious in this. I mean, I think as a sector, we see it as a very strong sector at the moment, and I think it's fair to say it has pretty much survived relatively unscathed from what negative impact there might have been from Brexit and also COVID. Yes, certainly things have been a lot worse in the industry in the not too distant past. So we can all remember really bad times. We've done okay this last 12 months. I appreciate there's a bit of a wobble at the start of the pandemic, but it was just a wobble, and we've got through that. Looking forward, I mean, past few months commodity markets have been strong, but as ever this time of year, we're sort of bracing ourselves and preparing ourselves for the usual perfect storm. You know, we're all acutely aware that UK dairy herds are heavy bias towards spring calving. Weather warms up, grass comes through, and you get that lactation peak and a flood of milk to the market in May, which, you know, so the big question is how we expect milk prices to nudge back a little bit. Where will they end up? Lots in the press at the moment, if you know, predicting volumes to be sort of a record level in the UK. Lots of factors might have impact on what that would do to milk price, and you know, linking that right back to COVID. We've got our producers. You know, we hear of impacts industries having through absenteeism caused by, sadly, those who are getting COVID. Now, hopefully, as we say, more and more vaccinated, we'll see less impact on in the production lines. But then turning to, I mean, certainly in the UK, certainly in England, and going back to Boris's announcement on Monday night, talking about, you know, hospitality having a more fuller release on 17th of May, perhaps later than many hoped. Is that going to be early enough to sort of kickstart that demand and get some more demand coming through from the food service? We'll have to wait and see what happens there. But all that's really a short-term blip. You know, I still very much view, and as does Armstrong Watson, the UK dairy industry, as a sustainable industry and a profitable one. I mean, certainly, especially for those efficient producers, cost of production, so around about that 25 pence a litre mark, when you're sort of building family labour and so forth. If you're an efficient producer, average milk price out there 30 pence a litre. Now, I'm prepared to get shot down on that one, because I'm, you know, very aware I've sat in Cumbria, and there are many producers in Cumbria with a price of way less than 30 pence, and sadly that is still a challenge in the industry. You know, we see that huge sort of variations in milk prices. But yeah, with those kind of milk prices and those kind of costs of production, there's money to be made. There's definitely money to be made. Looking forward over the next few years, yeah, loss of basic payments, concerns around domestic agricultural policy. We can't get complacent. There is still some uncertainty ahead of us. Environmental issues, ever on the agenda, they're not going to go away. Those issues are here to stay. And, you know, thinking about things like NVZs, reducing ammonia emissions and so forth. What we're looking at there, is it going to be onerous capital expenditure? What grants might be available? What's on the horizon there? But yeah, some pretty scary stuff there. So yes, we've still got uncertainty. Having said all of that, you know, you look back to where we were pre-December. Thankfully, in December we did get that free trade announcement, which took a little bit of uncertainty off the table. But yeah, just going back to that basic payments, I get a little frustrated because you keep reading the press that basic payment, not a big number in the world of dairy farming. It's all about efficient production. And yeah, very true, it is all about efficient production. But you know, there's no escaping that a number of dairy units, certainly that I look after throughout Cumbria, Southwest Scotland, and so forth, they are reliant on the basic payment. When it filters down to the bottom line, it still forms a big, a good element of the profitability of those farms. I was just looking at DEFRA released the results of their latest farm business survey last week. Now, being a survey, it is just a survey. It's not every farm out there, but I think it makes an understanding reach for me. It certainly aligns with what I say across my clients. Yes, there's been an increase in profitability over the course of the last 12 months. Part driven by increasing size of dairy herds, but you know, still we see for your average dairy farm, half of the profitability at the bottom line, or just over half of the profitability coming through what we would call traditional farming activity, more than a third coming from basic payment, and the balance coming through things like environmental schemes and also diversification. Now, acceptably not to the scale that Tracey and Aylett are talking about there, but you know, there is also diversification coming in there as well. But you know, getting back to that basic payment, a third of your income coming from basic payment, or a third of your profit, the prospect of losing around about half of that over the next 4 years is not welcome news. And I think, you know, that leaves businesses with the need to plan, and the need to, and the strive to be as efficient as possible, and really be as innovative as possible, and look to things like diversification as you've done and so forth. There's certainly no room for complacency in the industry, even though we see it as a good industry. So yeah, just going back to that free trade announcement, that announcement just before Christmas, where we struck the deal. I mean, that's good news for our industry. Certainly, you know, most of our import-export trade on the dairy sector is with the EU. So to be able to do that without tariff or restriction is useful and helpful. But yeah, let's not hide away from it. There's more paperwork involved, and with more paperwork comes friction and delay. And we transport a fresh product here, so delay is not good either. So yeah, finally, I would say another challenge I'm hearing talking to my clients, and I think it's a challenge I've heard for the last few years, is that of labour shortage. Finding good people to work on your farm, finding good herdsmen, finding good people to milk your cows, increasingly difficult. And that, coupled with that European labour that was coming across, has largely become a thing of the past. So those are challenges we're facing at the moment. But overall, I certainly conclude that we see plenty of cause for optimism in the industry. Some good news across my clients.
Thank you for that, David. I think that's a very useful summary. And unfortunately, it sounds as though you're not going to be able to get a Polish calf feeder to come and work, Tracey, to release you a bit of time. But I've got actually, there's a couple more questions come through for David, which I'll come back to you in a minute, David. But I'm busy working up and down questions here, and there's some interesting ones. So I'll pick the ones that we get a chance. We've got 4 or 5 minutes for some questions. So have you ever thought of setting up a permanent Udder Bar somewhere in the form of shop or cafe type thing? Is one, so there you go.
Well, yes. However, our mother and father-in-law have a 9-hole par 3 golf course, if that was said the right way round. You can tell them a golf bar. And it has a tea room attached to it, which is open 6 months of the year, the tea room. So to put a farm shop / tea room at the bottom of the farm road end would probably be in direct competition with the in-laws, which would not go down so well. So
could make the Christmas lunch interesting, couldn't it?
Just a wee bit. You might get scared. So at the moment, there's always that idea and that thought, but certainly it's not on the near radar.
I like being movable. I like being on wheels, so not fixed.
If we don't like the car, we just drive away.
Yeah, I think you can sense from when I've met you before and this that you're very people orientated, and I think part of the fun is it being at the events where everyone else is at rather than getting the people to come to you. So then another one that's just clicked up here. The TV appearance, did it boost the trade for your diversification business?
No.
Oh, I thought it
boosted popularity, and like we've got a lot of followers now kind of overseas. We've got international followers who are watching it on BritBox, I think. So it really boosted like our profile, but it didn't boost numbers, no.
And I suppose that's because the audience can be worldwide for TV, isn't it? But you can't send milk to the south of France or Egypt or wherever they may be every day, can you? So it's
could probably make more money selling our hoodies and like, you know, jackets, branded jackets and hoodies and hats.
Oh,
I'm
gonna have to be on the internet, and I'm partial to a hoodie to keep me warm. Believe it or not, David, there's even a question for us accountants come through. Somebody's saying I'm thinking of setting up my own diversification, and I have been warned that I should consider tax. That's a fairly open-ended question for you, David, but and we haven't got long, so apologies. But in sort of a minute or two, what? And I'm sure Tracey and Aylett, they'll have all worked with the farm accountant, but what sort of is the pitfalls to avoid possibly from tax point of view for this questionnaire?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a little difficult to answer without knowing the scale of it, but I'll start with sort of something that immediately springs to mind, and that's VAT. So yeah, for many smaller diversification projects, the first thing we'd think about is VAT, and you know, conscious that diversification projects largely supply or sell to the general public. The general public aren't VAT registered and therefore can't reclaim VAT. What you're doing is probably subject to VAT at 20%. So yeah, farms being farms, they're all VAT registered because you get the VAT back on everything you purchase. And what would be unwelcome is if you set up a diversification project in your farming name and you're selling to the general public, then essentially you're losing a sixth of your income to the VAT man. For every £12 you collect, 2 quid goes to the VAT man. Not particularly welcome. Now, it all depends on the scale of it, as I said earlier. Now, if you're trading beneath the £85,000 VAT registration threshold, first thing we'd consider is, should it be part of the wider farming business or should it stand alone? But it's not a one-size-fits-all. I think that's the key to it. And you know, whilst we can make small savings VAT-wise as we go along, you've just got to be really careful that isn't scuppering the bigger plan. Might be the bigger succession plan, but it could be the tax plan. You know, what we do with inheritance tax, what's it doing to the capital gains tax? Those tax rates are really high, 40% tax on inheritance tax and so forth.
And as one old sage in our firm, who's no longer with us, but he probably helped you, I was always taught that you should never let the tax tail wag the dog. And I think what was meant by that is that, yeah, none of us like, you know, none of us like paying tax or any more than we have to, but you should never make it the be all and end all of your business, because it'll make you make the wrong decisions. Somebody's just asked a question: what colour are the hoodies?
Oh, you've done it now, Tracey.
That's it. That's the next project. It used to be exclusive to only family.
It's even worse than that, because somebody said, what colour are the hoodies? You would look good in a nice pink hoodie, Andrew. So that's somebody that knows me watching it. I'll be quite, I'm comfortable. One question that, and I think we'll have to make it the final question, because we don't want to. I could sit and talk all night, but I know have the boys, men on the farm, appreciated how good it is now and how well it's doing, or is it?
I think Jesus Christ could come down and like have a say in them, and they still would not say how good we've done.
I'm sure they appreciate it, because it looks like a great product. So just before I do our thank yous, I would like, obviously this is a series, and this is the second in our series, and it's been absolutely brilliant tonight, and I could sit and talk all night. And one, I will, not that I like to give it publicity, but my phone's tweeting away here, and one of your fellow a great pal of mine, and a fellow female, I don't know what you call it, farmer, otherwise known as Wildman Heather, or Wild Heather, has been tweeting away. So she's keeping an eye on us, which is great, and wish we could all be together, really, if the lockdown. But our next one, this is a series, and our next one is the 24th of March, and we're changing from milkshakes and milk and lowland southwest Scotland to the uplands of Derbyshire. And next month we've got Jim Berry, who I know Tracey and Aylett know, very successful and progressive hill livestock farmer, and he writes for the Farmer's Guardian and is fairly frank with his thoughts. So that we'll be pushing that out and announcing that, the dates and times for that. So I think it just leaves me really to obviously thank my colleague David for a very useful insight in the sector and what pitfalls, but more importantly, Tracey, thank you so much for doing this. I know that people that have been watching will have had a great insight to diversification and some funny tales. Really appreciate it. I'm sure people have learned a lot. And thank you. And
yep,
thank you. We'll and next time I'm past Colvend, I'll be calling in. But I am looking forward to the next outing of the Udder Bar, when we can all be back to normal, standing, causing mischief at a show. All right. Thank you, folks, and thank you to people watching. Cheers.
Thank you all. Thanks.